Grab a cocktail with us and welcome to the hot mess that is my life as a single makeup artist living in a college town in Florida. This is Kara's Lipstick Diary. The holidays are here, you guys, so hit that subscribe button. Give me the Christmas present I've always wanted and subscribe to the show. Just click that button, please. Please, that's all I'm asking Santa for this year. Well, the holidays can be challenging, right? As a kid, it's super fun. It's all about Santa. But then as you get older, suddenly the pressures of the holidays can make the holidays super stressful. And if you're estranged from your family, well, it adds a whole new level of interesting. I'm estranged from my family, so the past 2 years, I've had to figure out what holidays mean to me now that I don't hang out with my family and do all those family traditions. So I'm thrilled to have my friend and therapist, well, she's not actually my therapist, but she is a therapist, Julie, back on the episode today to talk about some survival tips of how to deal with family estrangement, and especially during the holiday times. So we're gonna make a drink, but with that said, I know that you can often feel like, it's the holidays, I'm gonna self-medicate with alcohol. Let's not do that. Let's make sure that we also list on there a mocktail for you, because sometimes being clear-headed and not under the influence of alcohol during these trying times can definitely make things actually better. But we start every episode with a cocktail, so that's what we're gonna do. So this one is a Peppermint Paddy for the holidays. So we're gonna start with 2 ounces of vanilla vodka, which is super yummy. It's become clearly one of my favorite beverages. Then we're gonna add in 2 ounces of mint chocolate liqueur. Yummy. All right, super holiday tasting. And then we're gonna add in 4 ounces of cream. So a great sort of option if you wanna do the mocktail is do the peppermint hot chocolate that they have at Starbucks, you guys. It's to die for. All right, so we're gonna shake this all up so it's all mixed together. I'm really trying hard not to make a mess, you guys. All right, pour it into the glass, and then we are gonna garnish this cocktail with a peppermint patty, of course. How cute is that? All right, you guys, let's talk about family estrangement in the holiday season. All right, you guys, I am so happy that Julie agreed to do this episode with me. She has known me since I was in 6th grade. You might have seen her on the very first episode we did where we kind of roasted me. But she is back with this episode, and she is a therapist by practice, so she is the perfect person to have on this show because we are talking about family estrangement, and we're going to talk about sort of that in general, as well as how the holidays can be super triggering when you're estranged from your family. I personally became estranged from my family September of 2020. So that means I've gone through 2 holiday seasons and I'm approaching my 3rd holiday season without having those family traditions. I have to say, becoming estranged from your family is one of the hardest things you will ever do, but it can be very helpful for your mental health and your personal growth if you need to. And I happened to be in a situation where I needed to, and it sucked. It's terrible. It is not something that you do just lightheartedly. It really is miserable. And the holidays, it's really hard because you've had family traditions for however many years and all of a sudden they're gone and you're alone. I'm completely alone. So what do you do in that situation? How do you get through the holidays, the happiest time of year, when you're not feeling that way because, well, you're by yourself? So, Julie, thank you so much for coming on the episode.
Yes.
You obviously know me. You know my personal backstory. And then you also, work with clients dealing with these type of situations. So you are the perfect person to have on. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. Perfect is a lot of pressure, but I will do my best. And I do want to say, before we really get into the depths of this, that Kara's story is personal. It's personal to you. Mm-hmm. Your relationship with your family is your relationship with your family. If something about it is triggering for somebody else, if while we go through this, if there's a part of any listeners that are thinking, wow, this could be me, maybe I need to do this, please don't take this episode as a stepping block.
No.
If towards that, without talking to a professional, without seeking out your own therapy.
Yep.
Kara had the help of a therapist through this process. So it was really guided for her best health and the steps she needed to take to be her best self. And so the same needs to be true for any listener that's also thinking about taking these steps.
Correct. I had been in talk therapy for almost a full year before I decided to make this step. And I had my therapist holding my hand through the entire process. And it's hard because our society says, mothers, daughters, you can't walk away from that, but she's your mom. Yeah, that's true. But, there's also your own mental health and well-being. And sometimes making that break is the choice you have to make.
Right.
And like I say, I did not walk into my family estrangement just lightheartedly.
No.
In the slightest.
No.
It was the hardest decision I ever made. It still tears me up that I had to walk away from my family because they're my family, and I don't have a spouse. I don't have children. So when I walked away, I literally gave everything up. Everything.
You gave up that part of yourself.
Yes.
That new, when holidays came around, where you're going to be for Christmas. Where you're going to be for Mother's Day. Where you're going to be on Easter morning. Those are all Christian traditions.
Yes.
But to have that safety and familiarity, you gave up. But I'm so thankful that you were honest with people around you about it. And that's a big thing. That's a part of family estrangement, is authenticity and honesty with, not blasting it to everybody everywhere all the time, but to your core group of trusted family and friends that you are still keeping as a part of your safety circle.
Well, and that's why it was so hard for me to do this episode. This episode has been several years in the making, and I was not comfortable with even bringing it up on air for a long time. We had one episode this season where it was mentioned that I was estranged from my family, but it was one of those things that I've tiptoed around because I didn't want to, rock the boat and cause any additional drama or any, anything like that. I didn't want to throw anyone under the bus. But at the same time, I realized this is my story. And the more I've talked to my close people about it, the more I've realized there's a lot of us out there that are estranged from some aspect, if not all, of our family.
Right, for sure. And it's so nice the way you've handled it in a sense of reaching out, and you had the courage to do that because not everybody has that courage from the get-go. And estrangement isn't about hurting the people that you're walking away from. It's about preserving your own health.
Yes.
But that's not how everybody takes it.
No.
How could you hurt me this way? How could you do this to our family? And then I
got a lot of that.
Yeah.
You need to fix this by the holidays because it's your fault. And I think that that's one of the hardest things when you're the person who takes the step away is you get blamed for a lot.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about the steps to estrangement and what that means, because some listeners might not be already familiar with this.
Right. Exactly.
And so you don't need to go into details, but what was your experience? What were your feelings that said, my family doesn't feel safe to me right now, to start putting the boundaries in place that led to, okay, now these boundaries aren't being met or agreed to, so now I just have to remove myself completely.
Right. So for me, it was hard. And I grew up thinking that everything was fine. Everything was great. Everything was hunky-dory. And then it was when I was in therapy and realized I didn't know what a boundary was. Right. I didn't know I was allowed to have a boundary. I also didn't know that my own emotions and needs were allowed also. I had never really been allowed to have my own emotions. I was dictated on what I was supposed to feel, and most of my emotions were expected to reflect that of my mother. And that's generational trauma. And we see this over and over again, oftentimes with mothers and daughters. They're expected to take on the mother's trauma and sacrifice their own. And I had a lot of things happen, and I kept pushing them back, being like, well, it's not as bad as what happened to my mom, so it doesn't matter. I never cried for myself. I would cry for other people. I would cry for that TV commercial at the holidays, but I never could cry for myself, and I didn't know what my own needs and boundaries were. So when I was in therapy dealing with other subjects, the idea of boundaries and your own personal emotions, needs, and safeties became a prevalent part of what therapy is. And I realized, oh shit, I don't know any of those for myself. So when I started implementing boundaries with my family for the first time in 38 years, 37 years at the time, they didn't know what to do with that. And my therapist one day looked at me and goes, why do you let your mother treat you the way you would not let anyone else treat you? And I was like, well, she's my mom. And she went, okay, again,
Right.
why would you let your mother treat you this way if you would not let anyone else do this? And I went, hold up, wait a second. Yeah, you're right. Why? Why does she get to treat me this way? Why do I not feel safe around her? Why do my needs, emotions, desires, who my true identity is not count when she's around? So I tried to put those boundaries up. I tried to voice, these are things that, need to change in our relationship. And unfortunately, those boundaries were not respected. Unfortunately, there was actually more pushback when I voiced my needs, and we went sort of in the opposite direction. Mm-hmm. And there was a final breaking moment, because with me, I'll go along. And then there's one thing, and it doesn't even have to be a big thing, but there's one thing that sets the whole thing off. And I had that moment, and I went, I'm done. I am done. I don't deserve to be treated this way, and I wouldn't let anyone else. So I said, point blank to my family, I'm in therapy, as you all know. I would like you guys to get therapy. If you do that, we can talk about mending this. But unfortunately, that didn't happen. So here we are,
Right.
2 years later,
Yeah.
and I'm still estranged, and I don't see that being fixed because the lashing out has become even more extreme since I stepped away from my family.
Right. They're taking their hurt out. I mean, my assumption.
Yes.
They're taking their hurt out on you. This is your problem. You get therapy. You fix it.
Yeah.
And we see a lot of that in the mental health world when somebody finally gains the courage and the confidence to go to somebody that they care about and say, this is hurting me, this behavior, this expectation that I didn't agree to, whatever it is, and we need to come to a compromise, or this needs to stop, or there needs to be a time limit to this, whatever boundary it is they're trying to set. The other person, they generally take it personally, they get defensive, and they say, well, if you have a problem with that, then you need to fix it. And you're like, this is how I'm fixing it.
Yeah, this is how I'm fixing it, people.
By setting a boundary. And then once it's like, okay, well, you obviously are not going to respect my boundary. Could we go to counseling together? Would you guys seek counseling for, X, Y, or Z? And when they say, no, it's on you to fix everything, that's when you see, okay, I have to fix any damage, any hurt, any pain in me, and you are obviously not going to be a part of that.
Yeah.
Because if you're just going to keep picking at the same wounds, putting the same expectations on me that I didn't agree to, making me smaller than I am, all of these roles that we typically see being a pattern in that kind of situation, then it's like, okay, well, when you are ready to have a healthy relationship with me,
Correct.
I am 100% here for it.
Yeah.
But this is what I would need to see to make that happen.
And I was fortunate because I was friends with you. Like we mentioned, she's not my therapist, but I'm friends with you. So you warned me. When I started therapy, you said, oftentimes those who are your loved ones who have not sought therapy, when they see you seeking therapy and working to fix yourself, they're going to lash out. And you were right. And it was good knowing that going into it, because it would have been shocking to go from, okay, we're going along status quo. I start getting help, and all of a sudden, like, I'm the target of a lot. So that also pushed me to make the decision of like, well, I can't keep going in this path.
Yeah, it's helpful to know, but it doesn't make it less hurtful.
No, definitely doesn't make it less hurt. We can vouch that it's been hurtful. I have shown up at this woman's house bawling my eyes out, and her children coming and helping comfort me while she puts cheese in front of me to make things better.
Cheese makes so many things better.
Everything better.
Yes.
But so it's definitely, even to this day, things will still happen, and I still break down.
Right.
It is very hard when you're telling someone that you're estranged from your family, and the first things out of your mouth are, "Oh, but it's your family."
Right.
That's not a helpful thing to hear.
Right. I'm aware.
Yeah.
I'm aware of my relationship to them.
And, the whole, well, how would you feel if X, Y, or Z happened? I'm aware of all of that.
Right.
when you make the step to become fully estranged, you have gone through
all
of those thoughts.
Right.
You are not, like I say, making this lightheartedly. It is a big step.
Right.
But holidays.
Yes.
Oh, holidays.
So we've done a New Year's Eve together since. We've done Christmas morning together.
Yep. So that's the thing is finding your people.
Right.
You get to choose your family in life. And oftentimes that's not something we talk about. You know, blood is thicker than water. Oh, geez. Like, no. Like, it's thicker, but it doesn't mean you need to stick with it. So I've discovered that it's time to create my own family.
Right.
And Julie's been part of that family. So the holidays, because you are so used to those traditions,
right,
they're gone. You still have the memories.
I was going to say, they're not gone. That phase is just evolving into something new.
Yes.
And so it's okay to still love those memories. Mm-hmm. It's okay to say, like, my parents did a great, and I don't know what your Christmas mornings were like, but, you know, like, it's okay. My parents did a great job on Christmas morning when I was 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And those are wonderful memories, and I can keep them as happy memories because I was never, even as an adult, going to go back to that anyway. No. That phase of life was already over. Right.
So, but the thing is like, find those new traditions. Mm-hmm. So we have, we've done our Christmases together. Mm-hmm. I found other friends that have similar situations to spend holidays with, other people who have brought me into their families for things like Thanksgiving. Mother's Day is super hard.
Right.
Mother's Day is probably the holiday that I'm like, y'all, if I see one more damn ad for a Mother's Day gift, I'm going to lose my mind. So this year I was actually fortunate. I got away. Nice. I decided, you know what, to hell with it. I had a friend take me on a cruise and didn't have to think about it being Mother's Day whatsoever.
No, you don't have to know what day at all it is.
I didn't know what day it was. I mean, they put the lovely day of the week on the floor in the elevator, but beyond that, I didn't know it was Mother's Day. I was able to just do something just for me that was freaking amazing. I had never been on a cruise before. And it was amazing.
Right. And a lot of people that you've mentioned, how could you do that? It's your family, it's your family, it's your family, are looking at it from a perspective of their own family. Yes. And it's going to be a very different dynamic. Everybody's family, healthy or not, the dysfunction in everybody's family is different.
We all got some dysfunction, y'all.
Absolutely. And so it's, it's blaming one party or another. No, it's me preserving my own self. And would we ever say that? Would we ever say to a friend, but he's your husband, but that's your dad, but that's your mom, if they were hitting them.
Right.
So we look at emotional abuse and physical abuse as being on different planes, as if they're less or more damaging. And so we're hopefully changing the narrative in the coming generations that abuse is abuse, neglect is neglect, and they're all unhealthy in all forms. And so it doesn't have to get to the point where somebody hits you or steals from you. It's like, oh, well, of course you shouldn't stay in that situation. Please, how can I help you?
Right.
I mean, we see that all the time. These people, we get kids out of families that are physically abusing them, and we're like, we will do anything. We'll help set them up in a new home. And we go, as individuals, our heart breaks for that. But when it's unrealistic expectations or forcing them to deny who they are as a person, it's
generational trauma passed on.
It's just as damaging and just as painful, just because the bruising's on the inside instead of the outside. As a society, we're like, you're making so-and-so uncomfortable, or you're hurting so-and-so's feelings by talking about this.
That is one of my biggest things. You're going to upset the other person. Well, guess what? It's not my secret to keep. I'm not throwing them under the bus. Right. They threw themselves. And that has been hard for me.
Right.
That my truth matters just as much. Right. And I dealt with the fact that I had friends of my family sending me letters telling me how terrible I was for doing this, that literally the letter said that my needs and emotions did not matter. Only my mother's did.
That's so gross.
And it was suddenly like, are you serious? I'm a 40-year-old woman, and I'm not allowed to have my own needs and emotions and feelings and own mental sanity? I have to sacrifice all of that? So it is hard when you've got those outside forces that don't understand the situation, that don't know what is going on, telling you, oh, but it's your mom. It's your mom.
Yeah.
Or
your in-laws. I mean, I would say maybe 40% of my clients, I'm obviously guesstimating, are seeing me because of troubles with their in-laws.
Yeah.
And but I don't want to upset my husband's mom, or she is my kid's grandmother. But if this behavior is so toxic and so damaging, and you saw what it did to your spouse, why would you not protect your children from it?
Correct.
And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking when, these are not decisions to be made lightly.
No.
They're not decisions to be made by anybody else. I can't tell a client, this is awful, that's abusive, you have to get out of there. That is not my role.
No.
But it is to support what they want. And if they want a healthy family, if they're coming to me like, we need better communication, we need, we're fighting all the time, we're this, we're that, and you have to look at the underlying issue.
Yes.
And when there's abuse happening in the family, finding any level of health is going to be really hard.
Well, and it's interesting because I've had people ask, well, did you celebrate when you got to 1 year of estrangement? No. To me, it's tragic.
Right.
It is heartbreaking. It is sad.
Right.
I'm not celebrating the fact that I became estranged from my family. Not
but
in the slightest.
you can be proud of yourself.
I'm proud of the growth I've made.
Right.
I'm proud of the fact that by doing so, I became true to myself. I became, the catchphrase, my most authentic self.
Right.
It is a catchphrase, but it is true in my situation.
Right.
I was able to finally embrace who I am, what I want, and make massive emotional growth. And that I am proud of. I'm extremely proud of. But it's not something that I'm like celebrating.
Yeah. Woohoo, yeah.
Yay, I left my family. Woohoo.
No.
Like that's not at all how I feel about the situation. And I don't think most people who are become estranged feel that way. Right. I think most of us are heartbroken of having to make that decision.
Yes.
And the realization of some of the things we missed because of what we went through.
Right.
I think that is something we sometimes overlook.
Right. Yeah, and there's an internal dialogue, and I don't know if you're feeling this, but a lot of my clients feel it, of I finally found the worth within myself. I am worthy and deserving of a healthy life and a healthy emotional state. And if that means having to estrange from you, having to set these harsh boundaries with you to get there because you don't see my worth in working on this relationship and respecting my boundaries, that hurts.
Yes.
But it's empowering to say, I have finally found my worth and my deservedness, but it hurts when somebody, especially in your family, doesn't see it.
Yes. And there is a difference between when someone tells everyone in public that you're great, but then isn't behind the scenes.
Right.
And also I think it hurts when you're willing to make the growth. You're willing to put in the effort.
And the money and the time.
The money and the time. Because let me tell you, going to
cheap.
therapy ain't cheap, y'all. It ain't cheap at all. I have spent thousands and thousands of dollars, hundreds of hours in therapy the past few years. And it really hurts when you're willing to put in that effort. You're willing to go to those dark places, because in therapy, you go to dark places inside of you.
But don't be scared.
Yeah,
We're really nice.
It's worth it. I'm telling you, it is
That's
so
the
worth
thing.
it, because you get to that other side and it's amazing. I feel like a totally revived and new person with all the work that I have done. But when your loved ones refuse to do that, to have a relationship with you, and it shows literally how much they don't respect you or themselves to put in that effort, that's hard. That's really, really hard.
Well, and it's sad for them.
Very sad.
It's hard, I want everyone in my family to be their best self, to feel their healthiest, to be at their mental health best.
Yes.
And luckily, a lot of my family, having a therapist in the family helps, but a lot of my family will go and, everybody's working through their stuff.
Yeah.
And, but then I see my clients and they're the only ones. And everybody's like, well, if you want to waste your money on that and you want to waste your time on that. And it's really like, they don't like it because these these clients, they're setting boundaries, they're gaining confidence,
Yeah.
they're not looking to their partner or parents or friends, whoever it was, for constant validation. They're not people pleasing as much. And they're like, what's wrong with you? We don't like the
learned
new
how to say
you.
no. Shocking.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I think that that's, you know, one of those things that it's very hard. It's disheartening.
Yeah.
But coming through it, I'm 3 years into therapy. I am 2 years of being estranged. I know that, like, I glow differently now.
Right.
You know, they have the phrase glow up. I feel like I've had the glow up because of all of that. But
not because of the estrangement, but because
of all the steps.
Because of the health.
Yep.
The level of health you've gotten
Yes.
to. Right.
But again, those holidays.
They're hard.
They're hard.
So creating
They're really
new
hard.
traditions is really important.
Yeah.
Taking time to sit in your sadness.
Yes.
Is huge. Don't numb.
Very.
Who doesn't love a holiday beverage? Do not just party the holidays away to not experience the sadness and the grief. You have to grieve what you thought your life was going to look like with your family to get through an estrangement process. And not to say it can't change. It might never change for you, but some people say, like, wow, I see so-and-so glowing up so much more, and maybe there's something I'm missing. Maybe I do need therapy. I mean, it happens.
Yes.
It's not, you know, estrangement doesn't have to be forever.
No, it doesn't.
And it's hopefully not. We would love for everybody to go and seek the help and improvements and health that they need to live their best life. But, excuse me, while it's happening, grieving, it's not a linear process.
No.
It's up and down. It comes in waves, and then there's smooth days, and there's happy days, and there's days where you just don't feel like getting out of bed.
Yeah.
And
you have to allow yourself to feel that.
Yes.
That was very hard for me early on because, like I say, I had not cried for myself in a very, very long time. And I started crying for myself. And yeah, I have spent Christmas Eve sitting in my shower, on the floor of my shower, just crying and feeling that and allowing myself to feel that.
Right.
Because I hadn't. And like I say, those holidays for me are the triggering things.
Right.
I was able to escape for Mother's Day and make an amazing memory for myself. Easter this year, I was like, you know what? I've been invited by a lot of people to do things. I went to the pool. New Year's Eve, was invited to a million different parties, and I went, you know what? I need to sit with myself.
Yeah.
I need to be with myself for this. And I drove myself to the beach by myself, and I sat there. And I rang in the new year with me.
Yep.
Because that's what I needed. I needed to feel that. I needed to experience that. I needed to not numb it by being around a lot of people.
Right.
And have that moment for myself. Christmas morning, though, you know, I show up to your house. I show up to my friend's house with kids, and I get to see little kids excited on Christmas morning. You know, and I'm building my own family. I'm building my new traditions that allow me to get through the holidays and not feel quite so alone. That first year
Was that the
real
hardest?
tough.
Okay.
Well, and it was very new.
Right.
It was very new, and I didn't know. I still had a little bit of contact with the family. I still bought gifts for them. I didn't know how to quite not still be involved with it.
Right.
There was still so much pain because it was very, very fresh. It had only been a couple months. I mean, my relationship with my mother ended September of 2020. So November for Thanksgiving of 2020 was the first time I wasn't there. And Thanksgiving was, in general, a very triggering holiday for me anyways. So that just doubled up. You know, but I found other people to go spend Thanksgiving with, and I actually ended up having probably the best Thanksgiving I had ever had. But going into it was petrifying.
Yeah, the lead in.
The lead in.
What's this going to look like? How's it going to feel? Projecting fear
Yeah.
into the future and pain.
Exactly. So, you know, it's been very interesting because I've ended up having some of the best holidays I've ever had, but not expecting it.
Right.
And that lead up has been what's scary. So as we wrap up this episode, this is a tough subject. Like I say, this subject is one that it was hard for me to breach. It was hard for me to go, we're going to talk about family estrangement. Because to me, it was still something that almost ashamed of.
Sure.
proud of my growth, but still ashamed that like I had to get to this point. So for me to do this episode is probably one of the hardest ones I've done. We've talked about a lot of issues on the show, but this one was the one that I was having the hardest time being able to bring forward.
Leading into.
But we needed to. And I realized with the more people I talk to, more people go through this.
It's a lot. It's a lot more than we realize.
It's a whole lot more than we realize. And, you know, for those of you out there who are close with your family, God, I am so happy for you. I'm jealous as hell. But remember, that is not what everyone is going through. So when someone tells you that they're estranged from their family, especially during the holidays, don't guilt them.
Yep.
Just give them your love and support because that's what they need.
Do we have time for one more question?
Yes.
How do you handle social media at the holidays? Because that's a real big trigger for a lot of my clients of just like, I see these happy family photos and I see all these big gatherings.
One, I remember that with all social media, it is a highlight reel of people's lives. The reality is not always what we see in social media. So I always...
It's never
really. I always remind myself of that.
Right.
But honestly, I look at everyone's happy kids and I avoid looking at the rest. Because it is definitely challenging.
Right.
I have blocked my family, my immediate family from my social media, so I don't see what's going on there. Because I can't. My extended family I still have, but not my immediate family. Because I really can't handle that.
Right.
But it is hard. And I just have to remind myself, highlight reel,
Yes.
highlight reel. Because, you know, I had a highlight reel too.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So that's what I remind myself.
A version of you that everybody thought was the real.
Yes.
The real family, the real
Yes.
happy, perfect.
Everything's fabulous.
Picturesque, yes. And so that's a big thing. You know, I really strongly encourage my clients to, even if it's just deleting the app off of your phone, you know, to delete your account. You don't have to do any of that drastic measures if social media is something that feeds you in a positive way. But during the holidays, that seems to be the biggest trigger for...
Because you see it all.
All of it constantly.
All the traditions.
And you use it as a numbing tool and it's only hurting.
Yeah.
So while you think you're numbing by zoning out, you're still just picking at that trigger and it's really hard. And so they see what they think is reality for other people, but not for them.
Yeah.
And it hurts.
And that hurts. You know, like I said, holidays can be some of the biggest triggers if you're estranged from your family. It's been rough for me. I have to say, thank God for friends like Julie, who are there for me and are my created family. I chose who my family is. And I think that is something as an adult you're allowed to do. Choose your family. Choose the people who add joy to your life and allow you to be who you really are. So, Julie, thank you so much for coming on this episode and tackling this extremely hard episode for me.
Yes.
Because this was one of the hardest.
I'm proud of you. You did so great.
Thank you, friend. But if you are having issues, if the holidays are triggering, if you are already estranged or thinking about it, make sure you reach out to your mental health provider so that you can handle it with some grace and not completely go insane during the process, because y'all, there are moments where I thought I was going to completely lose it, but thank God for mental health providers. So make sure you reach out to your mental health providers to find out different techniques and tools you can use in the process wherever you happen to be during it. If you have an amazing family for the holidays, rock on. Congratulations. Like I said before, I'm a little jealous, but thank you guys so much for watching. This has been a little deep of an episode, but you know, hopefully it helps some people. So
Definitely.
Again, thank you, Julie. I really appreciate you being here.
Having me.
Of
It was
course.
a pleasure.
All right, you guys, make sure you hit that subscribe button and hope you have a fabulous holiday season, whatever holiday it is you happen to celebrate. You know, I have a pink Christmas tree. I don't really celebrate Christmas as much as I used to, but you know, it's a pink Christmas tree. Rock on.
Pink
I gotta have some pink, right? All right, you guys, have a fabulous holiday and make sure you subscribe. Talk to you guys again soon. Bye.